questions and answers. Some questions and answers, a question and answer session, and looking forward to what that might do in terms of moving our progress ever forward. Let me begin just a little bit of housekeeping for y'all. There is a chat box feature as well as a hand raising feature available in Zoom. When the time comes, you can raise your hand or drop questions as we go along in the chat box. So it's been about a year since I saw y'all. Hopefully you've taken the time to watch the 3 videos, or at least some of the 3 videos that were made available to you ahead of today's session. It'll make the session more fruitful. But if you haven't, they're still posted and available. You can go watch after the session today. And any questions you may have, even after today's question and answer session, feel free to email and we can include those in the feedback and try and provide some follow-up. Before we begin questions and answers, I wanted to first talk just a little bit about some of the current changes in leadership for the department. And there's a lot of transitions afoot. We're working hard to keep the website updated with those changes, but with as many changes as we've had, it may not fully be up to speed. So first I'll mention that joining us today for the question and answer session is my new Deputy Commissioner replacing Peter Mason, Deputy Commissioner Lisa Villardo, and she'll have an opportunity to introduce herself in just a little bit. As we're doing these regional sessions, we have new regional directors in each of the 3 regions from when we met last year. And so for a brief moment now, I'd like to turn it over to our West Region Regional Director, Shannon O'Brien, a longtime regional fixture as the private ARD and now Regional Director. So Shannon.
Good morning. I'm Shannon O'Brien, recently appointed to the Regional Director position in the West Region. I started in this role on July 1st, so I've only been here a couple months. I'm thrilled to be taking this role on. I'm really excited. I basically grew up in the department. I started at Southbury Training School as a summer worker, and here I am over 30 years later. So it was the longest summer job one could have. It's truly my passion. I ended up going to graduate school and did get a master's in social work. I did a few other part-time positions. I did work at a women's crisis facility and a sexual assault program in Waterbury. I'm familiar with the area. Like I said, I worked at Southbury. I also did a stint at the Hartford Regional Center as the residential manager up there. Then I transferred to the South Region and then back to the West Region, where I served for a period of time as the resource administrator, dealing with contracts and quality assurance, and then to the ARD position. So I'm super excited to be here. I'm learning parts of the region that I wasn't familiar with before, been spending time learning about respite and individual and family support. So I'm trying to really expand my knowledge in those areas. I do have most of my experience being in contracts and operations and direct service providing. So I will turn it back to Jordan at this point. Looking forward to working with all of you, different stakeholders. I had my first advisory meeting the other day with Fritz, which was great to be part of, and looking forward to that as well.
Thank you, Shannon. And thank you for sharing all that. And just a quick couple other staffing updates. I believe on the call today, a long sought after position, and we finally found the right candidate. I'd like to introduce as the director of our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Office, Dr. Cheryl Ellis. You out there, Cheryl? Say a quick hi. All right, we may be having a little technical difficulty. I'm sure she'll have an opportunity to pop on later if she's still, oh, there she is.
Sorry about that, a few technical difficulties. Good morning, and thank you for having me. And I look forward to the discussions and hearing everyone's thoughts and opinions. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. Not on the call today, but another essential new member of our team is a gentleman named Jake Mankey. We didn't have a director for emergency services and strategic planning during COVID. And we learned we really would benefit from having someone who has that sort of both experience and perspective within DDS. So Jake Menke is another name you may hear going forward, a new member of our team. And last but not least for today's introductions, we have a new ombudsperson, and her name is Shannon Giacovino. She'll drop her contact information in the chat box. She serves the role of ombudsperson previously in a variety of other settings, has worked as an advocate within the community, and many of you may know her from her time at the ARC of Connecticut. So why are we here today? This is a real opportunity. As we started last year, putting together our 5-year plan, we talked about a rare opportunity for transformative change that comes along with the American Rescue Plan Act funding that we're working on investing in a variety of ways, including in our direct care workforce, our home and community-based services, promoting community integration, and all of that while trying to reduce some of the per person care costs, which in turn will help us with issues regarding the wait list. There's a lot of things that may look like, but we're gonna hopefully you've seen the videos and you've heard a little bit about that, so I'm not going to get into what all of that looks like now. I do want to say, as I said last year, and I'll say again this year, this is not a campaign to end the use of group homes. This is an opportunity to consider broadening the continuum of supports we have that, as far as I can see into the future, will always include group homes. But there are other ways that we can provide supports and services to meet the needs of many, and looking to see how we might do that going forward. And there's a lot going on, as I said. In a moment, I'll turn it over to Deputy Commissioner Velardo. But I did want to share, the workforce crisis that we're in is the worst we've ever seen. I've been hearing the words workforce crisis related to what we do for all of my 30+ years in the business. And I suspect that this is as bad as it's ever been, and it's going to take a little while to get better. A lot of our interests around this ARPA, the ARPA spending, is to help stabilize the private provider network, and in so doing, stabilize the workforce issues that we face there, as well as the workforce issues we face in public. So it is present on my mind. I know it's a matter of concern for our providers, our families, those we support, and of course, ourselves here at DDS. With that, I will turn it over for a few brief remarks from Elisa Velardo to talk a little bit about employment and other issues.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hello, it's good to see everyone here today. I'm Elisa Velardo, Deputy Commissioner for DDS. Prior to taking this role in April, I was the Regional Director for DDS North Region. I am so happy to be part of these forums and get to meet people from around the state. I wanted to share a little bit of information. I know that you received videos that provided some information prior to this session, and so I won't recap those videos, but I'll give you an update as far as information that's occurred since we shot those videos. On the employment front, there's a lot of really exciting news. We have continued to be engaged with the SELN, State Employment Leadership Network initiative, and we've had groups from around the state, stakeholder groups that have been working on recommendations pertaining to employment. We are in the process of convening a subcommittee on transportation. So if anybody's particularly interested in the topic of transportation and has some really good ideas as far as how transportation options can be expanded, I invite you to reach out and we'll give you more information on that subcommittee. The groups that have been in operation have already provided quite a few recommendations, and we've begun to implement those recommendations. We issued a memo this past week on individual supported employment and streamlining and incentivizing employment. And so that's pretty exciting. We also have been talking a lot about customized employment. And for those of you who are not familiar with customized employment, it's a model for people who want to be employed but have not successfully had the opportunity to be employed as of yet. And it's a proven process that really provides some extra support around employment. There is funding for that. So if you're interested in employment or you have a loved one that's interested in employment, reach out to your case manager and inquire about customized employment. And then finally, we had our third quarter meeting this past week, and the committees submitted a new list of recommendations that are currently being reviewed by the commissioner's office. So stay tuned, lots of good things happening in employment and day services. The other thing I wanted to share with you is that we've been hosting a series of Fourth Tuesday forums. Each month, they started in July, and each month we have a different topic that we highlight. This past month, it was assistive technology. The format is pretty similar each month. We have providers that talk about innovative services. We have DDS staff who have expertise in that area. We have participants from sister agencies who share resources that are available, but really, I think the most compelling part of the forums is we have individuals and families that have utilized the service and speak from their experience how that resource has made a difference in their lives. And so if you go to our website on the cover page, you'll see Fourth Tuesday forums. They're always from 3 to 4:30. October will be CCH. Then we will talk about customized employment in November and remote supports in December. I'm in the process of pulling together the list of forums for the first half of 2023. And so if there are areas that you have interest in and you'd like to see featured, again, just drop a note in the chat and we certainly can incorporate any of those topics into the forums for 2023. So with that, I will turn it over to the commissioner.
Thank you, Elisa. I appreciate that. And while we're moving steadily through some of this information, it's an intent just to give you an idea, some of the things going on, but to afford you time for questions and answers about anything you've heard today or anything from the videos or generally anything that's going on you'd wish to share. So I'm going to come up for air now. This is our second of our 6 or so of these. I'm going to come up for air now and turn it over to any questions that we might have from people in attendance today. You can either raise your hand or drop your question right in the chat. And Jessica, you look like you're first up. I'm not hearing you. Is anyone else hearing you?
No, Commissioner, we're not.
Okay, you're unmuted. You don't have your mute sign up, so I'm assuming you're unmuted. I don't know what's wrong there, Jessica. I don't know what's wrong. All right, while Jessica's figuring that out, let's see if we can hear from Barb. It says Barbara Tendler.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. My son attends Ability Beyond, his day program, and before the pandemic, he was using individualized day support money to have a job coach. And ever since the pandemic sort of cooled off, I guess, I've been asking the staff there if we could reinstitute that piece of his program, and I've been told that there's no staff to do so. Now, Elisa Velarde just said that there is funding for employment, customized employment. Would that be how would I go about using that funding to help my son?
So there's definitely funding available, and I'll let Elisa talk more about customized employment. But the work, our providers and the state itself is struggling to attract, to bring in staff, and it seems to have very little to do with wages at the moment. So it's a problem we're familiar with and working on, but you are not alone in this situation.
Oh, okay. So the funding is there, but there are no people to sign on and do the job.
I don't know specifically, but it sounds very similar to other stories I've heard across the state. And Shannon can help follow up, have case management follow up with you directly, but I'm reasonably certain that you have that the funding hasn't changed for the provider. So if it was there before the pandemic, it should be available to them now, but we can follow up. There is definitely a very hard, a very big problem with generating enough workforce.
Okay,
And I-
all right, so it's a workforce problem. Okay, all right.
And
Thank you. Oh,
And
go
I
ahead,
can
Lisa.
just add a little bit more with the customized employment. So your son would have his funding and the services. And as the commissioner said, there may be issues within the agency as far as workforce issues. That's certainly something that providers are contending with. With the customized employment, that would be an additional resource. So speak with your case manager. Shannon's on the call. I don't know. I can check to see if Ability Beyond has trained up staff in the customized employment. And that is an additional tool that is available to help people who are interested in employment.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it's, he had this job going beforehand and it was customized to some degree, of course. And I will send my information. Thank you.
Commissioner, next up is Elda Smith. Elda, if you would just unmute yourself before you start speaking.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I had several questions and some comments. Dovetailing with the question my previous speaker had, has the department been able to identify why staff cannot be, why no one is interested in working at Ability Beyond or any state agency? Is it a matter of money? Is it a matter that they want benefits and benefits aren't offered? I'm very aware that staffing is an issue, but what I haven't heard once is why are we not attracting people for these jobs? And then I have several other questions, but I'd like to address that one first. Mark?
Commissioner, you're muted.
There's a nationwide shortage of workers in every industry. It doesn't matter whether it's manufacturing, retail, recreational, hoteling, you name the industry, they're short workers. There are more jobs available in the country right now than there are people. And we're part of, we're just within that. We've done a lot to drive up wages. Wages went to $17.25 at a minimum as of July 1st of this year. Well above the minimum wage currently, and providers are being given additional money to provide incentives in creative ways, and whether that's sign-on bonuses or retention bonuses or other things. So while it's always at least in part about money, we think that there's just a broader workforce issue when unemployment is as low as it is, and there are more jobs than workers. It's a struggle everywhere.
All right, I'm just out of curiosity, doesn't medical insurance have anything to do with it? That people, are these considered full-time or part-time positions?
So the agencies, the private agencies run themselves as independent corporations. We did provide funding. Secretary McCaw, prior to leaving the Lamont administration, arranged for a large amount of money to be poured into benefits, both health benefits and retirement benefits. That's been administered to the private providers. All this is going on at the same time. The workforce crisis was burgeoning, and we were coming out of COVID, beginning to come out of some of the COVID weight. But many depends on the provider. Some providers have very robust healthcare, very robust retirement and other benefits, and others don't, although all were afforded an opportunity to submit requests for funding. I'm going to say about a year to 18 months ago. I could be wrong on the timing of that. To bolster that even further. So in addition to driving up wages to 1725, there was also money added for health and other benefits.
Okay, so what it sounds like in some ways, if a particular agency doesn't have enough staffing, then the parents should at least follow up with that agency to see if they've been able to identify. To me, 1725 and medical benefits, for a full-time job sound pretty good, starting right out of the gate. Has there been any talk or possibility that perhaps partnering with some of the local universities, individuals that are going for degrees in special education, that they might be able to earn field hours working at Ability or places like Ability? My son attends Ability as well.
Yeah. So we participate in the Governor's Workforce Council and a number of other workforce initiatives across the state. And we are looking at what we would call pipelines for a variety of disciplines, including some of the clinical disciplines, nursing, OT, PT, speech, nutrition. But even within the direct care ranks, we're talking about ways that we can create a way to find both with colleges, technical schools, any of those types of solutions where we can partner with them to try and improve the situation. Those are more long-term strategies. Those are things that take a little while to build. Some of the providers do use interns and do provide clinical supervision for people in both bachelor's and master's programs who need those types of hours. I think, and there are a number of providers on the call today, or at least one or two I can see. One of the problems that providers are running into is they are so thin on staff, they don't have the staff to supervise the people who are interning, because staff who might otherwise be supervising are actually doing frontline work to cover gaps in coverage.
Okay. My two other questions regarding the transportation issue, and there was a committee are you looking for parent participation in that as well? If so, I'd like to be involved with that. While I don't have any ideas, I can certainly attest to what I found has worked, what I'd like to see maybe improved. I don't know if you're looking for that kind of
We
talent.
definitely are looking for parent participation, and if you reach out to me, I can, in fact, I'll put Julie Bouchard's contact information in the chat, and she's gathering the names of the committee members. And so if you reach out to her when we convene, we certainly will include you.
Wonderful. And then the last comment that I just wanted to make with regard to the customized employment for individuals, that's wonderful. My son, who I didn't think could ever work, has a small part-time job. What I'm running into is Social Security versus earned wages. I've just gone through a nightmare about 2 weeks ago where Social Security was saying that they overpaid my son about $2,500. Come to find out that last year when the stimulus was given out, they considered that income for my son, which it was not supposed to be. And my husband and I actually returned the money because I was so petrified about losing benefits because it's very important that my son attend Ability Beyond. So what happens is they're about 2 months behind. So I constantly get letters in the mail. We're upping, we're down, we're increasing, decreasing, increasing, decreasing. And it's very difficult to manage. And I see Barbara Temler shaking her head. I'm assuming, Barbara, you've gone through the same thing. And it's, to be honest, I came very close to having my son quit his job only because of the stress that I'm under. So any parent who has a child working knows you're juggling Social Security versus DSS. The $2 amounts aren't even the same. DSS is $1,600. Social Security, I think, is $1,800 or $2,000. So in many ways, it kills any incentive for somebody to look for work. And on that note, I won't take up any more time.
Well, I appreciate your questions, and we will, I want to connect you with some resources after the meeting with regards to benefit counseling and some staff embedded within DDS that can assist when families are running into trouble with what you're describing as sort of a benefit cliff or a disincentive to work. So we'll follow up with you after the meeting, Elda, to see if we can help you with those particular issues.
Terrific. Thank you.
Commissioner, we have Jessica Kramer back with her hand raised. So Jessica, if you want to just try unmuting again, please feel free to do so.
I think I got it going. So
Yes, you do. Thank you so much.
But it did give me a chance to take a breath, and I'll be professional and not snarky. I am a case management supervisor in the West region, poor Shannon, I'm sorry. And I also am the chairperson of a subcommittee for the employment, I can't remember what we call it, Elisa, but we're working with SELM. I have worked with SELM on a couple of different projects. So employment is dear to my heart. What I would like to know is, I think customized employment could be huge, because every time I go to a restaurant, every time I go anywhere, there's always an extreme staff shortage there too. But on the other hand, I've worked with so many people who can't get jobs, who are working with agencies who aren't employed. And I'm wondering also if we're thinking about dovetailing our two crises. So we have a crisis of underemployed individuals that we support, and yet we have a crisis of a shortage of staff. And I'm wondering why we're not trying to make those two things work together. When I was in the South region, I had a person sitting at home. She could probably teach a master class in knitting. I can't make one row, but she makes Afghans and all these things. Now she could be she's sitting home. She could be going into DSOs and teaching knitting classes. She could be doing a lot of things if we were thinking a little bit more creatively. And benefits are a huge issue when we start doing that. We have to accept that case managers don't really have an in to Social Security. And so when we take on these employment initiatives, I think we need to also take on the fact that there are going to be some issues that happen with that, and that one or two people in DDS knowing how to help those issues probably isn't enough. But I think there's some ancillary things that have to happen with, instead of disincentivizing going into a DSO, it would be nice to incentivize different kinds of employment and to really truly help people, because as much as there are some incentives, I don't understand why we don't have more people who are receiving supports and giving supports. I mean, I know there's probably some logistical issues, but I just think that
there are actually a couple of waivered services to do specifically that, including our IP buddies and peer
supports. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's a concept that we've embraced in terms of adding it to the waiver, but creating momentum to do some of the things you articulated, Jessica, is a challenge. Elisa, I don't know if you had more to comment on that.
Yeah, I think your point about incentivizing employment is a really good one. Our App Center sent out a memo last week as far as really looking at our rates for ISE, and with the hope that we are building that infrastructure to incentivize employment. And as far as creative options for people, I've thought that myself, Jessica, that we've got people that are looking for work as we talk about a workforce crisis, in any way that as we're looking at customized employment across a variety of industries, we certainly should be looking within as well.
Well, I think we need to incentivize families to, like Ms. Smith is saying, it's, you know, she's had such a hard time and dealing with Social Security. I just don't envy anyone because I know how hard it is. And their right pinky doesn't even know what the right ring finger is doing, never mind left and right hands. And so, you know, I think we have to get our department, I think, a little up to date on that as well, to incentivize families.
Yeah, we definitely can offer some training because depending on the amount earned, there are programs that will help protect your benefits depending on your earning category. In your benefit checks are typically, and I say this just typically, affected. You know, you lose 50 cents on the dollar for every dollar you earn as a wage earner. It comes off your benefit, but you're still ahead 50 cents for that dollar. But I think you're right, especially with so many new case managers. It's worth doing some in-house training, and we'll take note of that and do some education and training, both for families and our case managers on that issue.
I know over the summer, Wayne Seidel had the summer learning series, and one of the people he brought in was from Aging and Disability Services, a benefits counselor, to speak with the supervisors. Maybe we can build on that, because I think there is some expertise even outside of our department that we can probably tap into.
And often Social Security won't talk to us. So, you know, I don't know if there's parts of our department that can reach out. Again, I would imagine it would be difficult to the federal government to, if we could have some kind of way, because again, a lot of times they won't even talk to us and they insist on talking to the individual or at least the guardian. And then guardians are just kind of out there and trying to navigate the system.
I know those forums, they're complicated. You know, I mentioned that we have the forum in November on customized employment. I'll see if I can get someone to speak about benefits at that forum as well. I think they tie in together, and if we're talking about employment, we should be talking about benefits as well. So I can look at that for the November forum.
Thank you, Lisa.
So we have a couple of hands raised. That said, we do have some questions in the chat that are starting to pile up. So just to make sure we're getting to everything, I'll read the first question in the chat, which is from Ryan Patton, who has since left the meeting. He had to leave for another meeting, but I'll read the question just for everyone's awareness. Good morning. Are there any plans of expanding the blended services pilot, allowing individuals to use their res and day funding interchangeably?
So I'll answer the question that there are not any current plans for extending, although I do think that we may have some dialogue around establishing a second pilot. The timing of the first pilot dovetailed with the onset or some of the COVID related issues, and so the data and what we learned from that was tainted in a way just because of the whole COVID experience. But we do know that there were several big success stories. For people who don't know what Ryan's question spoke to, when individuals with intellectual disability get awards for funding, whether that's day or residential, they're intended, and there's specific ways that money can be spent. So day program money can only be spent on day program, and residential money only on residential. We, with about $500,000, ran a pilot because there's a belief that flexibility with your funding and spending may help a number of families who may have money available for day, but really need more residential support, or they find where they need the support is not where the programs are. So I wish Ryan was still here, but we'll talk more about that. I do think that flexibility in your funding and authorizations is critical to getting the most out of what we can from the system. Joe, other questions?
Yep. So I'm just going to read one more question from the chat before we move to raised hands. I noticed that one hand that was raised has just been lowered. So we will get to the folks who have raised their hand. So if you have your hand raised, please feel free to leave it raised. We'll get to you shortly. But for the second question in the chat, it's from Carla Beatty. Her question is as follows: as it relates to the ARPA funding, in parentheses, incentives, and the barriers associated with workforce shortages, with the deadline fast approaching on December 31st, 2022. If unused, will these funds roll over if earmarked geared toward referrals and sign-on bonuses? I apologize, that was a mouthful.
That was a mouthful. So, but I'll do my best to answer that. When we were first granted the funding, we were aware of certain strings attached for accounting and reporting. The federal government has increased some of those reporting requirements. So I don't want to speak as an authority because I don't know up to the minute details. The funding is for a 3-year period with certain money to be spent during certain times. So we can follow up with Carla with a specific answer to that question on the wage related money that's included with the ARPA. But a lot of the spending that we have to do will not take place by December 31st of this year and will need to be carried forward is the government expression that we use as opposed to rolled over. So we're expecting funds to be carried forward, but only certain funds, and I don't have all the details, and we'll have to get back to you to get that. But we'll specifically respond on the wages and incentive money, unless you know anything different than that. Elisa, is that about right?
I think that what you said is accurate, and we can get more details out.
So next up, we have Janine Graswald, who had raised their hand. So Janine, if you can hear this, please feel free to unmute yourself and turn on your camera if you wish.
Okay, I can't turn the camera on, but I did unmute myself. Oh, I'm on. Okay, I could see myself on. Anyhow, I'd like to just piggyback on what Jessica was saying, and one of the parents who mentioned their experience with Social Security. When I first tuned into customized employment, it sounded really great, but my first reaction was, okay, this is putting the cart before the horse. There's so many issues with Social Security that needs to be a whole overhaul for the people that we serve nationally with intellectual disabilities. All of our entitlements are geared more toward people with physical disabilities and mental illness that go through periods of time where they have some ability to work and then they don't, and they can flip back and forth. Our folks can work and usually can work, but there's so much tied to these benefits. I have people that over the years have been petrified. They have lost benefits. They can work. They want no part of it. And then I have people that want to work. And right now in this economy, they have been hit very hard. I mean, with the inflation this summer, this spring and summer, nobody was shopping for the extra non-essentials. Nobody was going to Home Goods for cute little trinkets for their home when you had to feed your family and pay gas. So one of my folks that lives independently, his hours were cut back to 4 hours a week, and he lost his Social Security, and his hours were cut back to 4 hours a week, and he couldn't pay his rent. Luckily, he has a sister that chipped in to pay the rent. It's Social Security will say, just sign up for Ticket to Work. It's so easy. Then you can just go back. It is not easy. All of our people say it is not easy. It's a nightmare. I've had parents in breakdowns because of it. And I don't know what we can do as a nation to address some changes for people with ID in the country. I mean, the self-advocates were really great and got the ears of 15 legislatures around the country, 15 senators that wrote the WIOA Act. We really need major reform for our people to be successful at a job and make life easier for them and not so petrified, because my one person is still only getting 4 hours a week, and his sister's working feverishly on getting his SSI reinstated for him. I'm really worried he's going to be in the psych unit pretty soon if something doesn't give. So it all sounds great, but I agree with Jessica. We really need to address Social Security. And I know if you have a speaker come, they're just going to, again, as they historically have come and said, well, we have the Ticket to Work and we have this and we have that. It's not enough. We really need to work with them to make some major reform in order for our folks to be successful around the country. So it's not really a question. It's more of sharing what my people on my caseload have experienced. And I know every other case manager
Yeah.
has the same situation, and we can talk all day long about customized employment, but employment does affect people's social security and minimum wages going up again. And then we have, okay, I used to work 20 hours. Now I can only work 15 hours. And then we have private agencies short-staffed, and then they're home. What are we going to do to fill up the rest of their week? You know, creativity is great. And that's what we've been trying to do, is be very creative. So we have a lot of things that kind of have to be worked out.
So thanks, Janine. And I appreciate you highlighting that there wasn't so much a question as opposed to a concern. And I appreciate you bringing that forward, and give us a little bit of time to talk offline about what we can do for education, one, but as you said, also to work with DSS and then potentially federal partners as to what would change to make it simpler and less threatening. So I appreciate that.
Commissioner, I see that Laureen Lewis has her hand raised. And after Laureen, there's a couple of questions along a similar theme as we've been discussing. So I'll read those after Laureen's question.
Okay.
Good morning. So I work for DDS in the South region in the CCH program. And so I'm just wondering, there's been a lot of talk about like resources, different agency staff that can assist with some of these benefit issues. Yep. And I know in the last 6 months, I've had 3 individuals that I support personally in CCH have their Social Security be terminated because they're making minimum wage at a job, and their job continues to schedule them at 20, 22 hours a week. And so their benefits have been terminated. And again, the only way to mitigate that was to work less hours. And so now we have to bring them back from what they're capable of doing, because the only way to keep their benefits and essentially continue to live where they live is if they're getting that Social Security benefit. And when I reached out for assistance, even within our own program, there was no one that really knew how to navigate that significant gainful activity, is what Social Security calls it. There's a cap of about $1,300 they can make per month before their Social Security is now at risk under the significant gainful employment activity. So is there a way to send those resources or those names to DDS staff so that we could access that assistance?
So there is a benefit. There's an email box, a generic email box that I don't know off the top of my head that case managers can access if they're having redetermination issues or eligibility issues. And I don't remember it off the top of my head, but we'll get that out there. It's supposed to be staffed with 5. We pay for 5 DSS employees to work directly for us and work in what's basically an escalation unit with their partners on the other side of the imaginary line at DSS. Currently, I believe either 2 or 3 of those are vacant. It's part of the workforce crisis, and DSS is hiring to replace them. But I don't think that the remaining staff are overwhelmed by what's in the queue, but I can get an update for you. But I think somebody, Jessica just dropped that in the box, the DDS-DSS issues at ct.gov. And clarifying that's not for Social Security, not for SSA, that's just for DSS. So we will see what we can do to make sure that everyone is aware of those resources. There's also benefit counseling resources available through Bureau of Rehab Services, what used to be DOORS, which is now Aging and Disability Services. So I appreciate that we're spending as much time on this, because this has not been one of the conversations we've had a lot recently, but obviously an area where we need to pay a fair amount of attention. So we give us a little time to chew on all this and do a status check of where we are and see what we can do to try and improve the situation.
So Commissioner, I'm just going to read through the chat. I think that will just about catch us up. There are 3 or 4 comments along the similar train of thought. So starting with Christine Santori, her comment was, same issue. How can they earn money at a job and keep SS or DSS? I told DDS to take him to volunteer. Denise Ball commented, it would be helpful if agencies providing employment support services also have a basic understanding of the effects of earnings on benefits, the SO5 program, etc. Brian had provided a link for additional information regarding customized employment. So that's in the chat. And lastly, before I'll come up for air and let the commissioner comment, is Virginia Dyer, who said individuals served by DDS get cut from their SSI without contact with DDS first. There would be less misunderstanding if somehow SSA contacted DDS first before termination of benefits. There are one or two more comments, but I'll let the commissioner speak very briefly.
So we have, there's a new Medicaid director at DSS, and I have not yet had the opportunity to talk to Guy about this conversation. I have talked with their commissioner and the prior Medicaid director. So one of the things that I thought would be helpful, because in addition to losing the financial benefit, I think a bigger benefit that people worry about is their health benefit, is losing access to Medicaid as a result of earning too much money. And it's possible to maintain Medicaid and get zero cash assistance. You could earn enough money that you get zero from the feds, but you'd still get Medicaid. And so to have people who would be, I have wanted to have all the people that are eligible for the department be on a list that would never get discontinued health benefit. In fact, I know from some families directly, the only time they realize they've lost benefit is when they go to the doctor or they go to the pharmacy and something that had always been covered, all of a sudden there's a charge for. And it's the first time they've realized they've lost benefit. And it may have nothing to do with earned wages. It may have been missed paperwork on a redetermination or other things. So I know it's problematic, and the comment is correct. We don't get any advanced warning. We don't get notified before families or before the individual or before our private programs do about termination of those benefits. And it would be handy if we knew that was happening. We do try and pay attention to what we can find ahead of that, but we don't have a way to track assets. You know, we're not surveilling bank accounts and things like that to know where people are with assets or with earnings in a way that helps that. But we'll add it all to the soup here and see what sort of solutions we can begin to talk about and discuss further with you. I appreciate all that.
There's just one additional comment from Christine Santori regarding DDS Ability Beyond Day program has a tracker for volunteer job for paid jobs. I've asked them to do both, but you really can't, or at least not at the same time. It's different departments and different staff. No raised hands at the moment, but there's an additional comment that just came in regarding Social Security and SSI issues.
So we do have a 5-person unit under our Medicaid Ops Center that does this. It is not public facing in terms of the referrals come in through that mailbox internally. But we'll talk more about what we can do with that unit and whether we need to make it bigger or just make it more visible, or what we need to do there. We'll circle around on all that. I appreciate the feedback. Are there other questions from the crowd today on anything from the videos or anything mentioned today? Other things on your mind? All right, I'm not hearing any. Oh, go ahead, Elda. You're muted again.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. So if I'm understanding correctly, if I continue to have issues with either DSS or Social Security, there's someone that I can reach out to at DDS for help?
So you should reach out as a parent, you should reach out to your case manager who can send the issue to our escalation unit.
Okay.
And tell them that you need help to our DSS staff embedded at DDS.
Okay. I think just to speak on behalf of the other parents that have also contributed their experiences, I hate to say it, but I'm glad to see I'm not the only one, because I honestly thought I was. That's why I didn't even bother to reach out to my case manager. But I think it's, I don't know what the right word is, but to see so many other people dovetail with similar issues to what I've had, I'm wondering if this issue really needs to be moved up the priority ladder at DDS. I mean, this is just a handful of comments from the West region. So with that.
Well,
You
we
are
had
not
create,
alone.
yeah, I appreciate that. We had created the escalation unit when we did, because we had heard so many of the issues, and to be honest, I have not heard a lot of it recently. So this is the first I'm hearing this much robust conversation about the issue in quite some time. So we'll follow up and see what we need to bolster that.
Thank you.
And just as a case management supervisor, Ms. Smith, we are always happy to help in whatever way we can. And even if you are feeling alone, please feel free to reach out to your case manager. And, you know, again, we can't help a lot with Social Security at this point. Hopefully that will change. But with DSS stuff, we can help. And just, again, you know, you aren't alone by any stretch.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I do want to clarify, Jessica's offered some clarification in the box. When we escalate these issues, we don't directly deal with the Social Security Administration or Medicaid. We have staff who directly work with individuals, staff at DSS who are connected that way, but we don't have a direct connection to the Medicaid Social Security Administration on these issues. We just work through from our escalation unit through their staff to resolve those.
Okay.
All right, if there aren't other questions today, we're a little early, but I don't want to make people talk for the just to fill the air. So, Nina has a question about self-determination, and your brokers can also, so we call the case managers in self-determination brokers. Those brokers have access to the same escalation unit that our regular case managers do, and you can contact them and they can try and help resolve that issue.
So who's the broker?
Your case manager.
I see. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yep. Alrighty, everyone. It's nice to see you. If you have additional questions after the meeting, feel free to email them. Remember, those videos are posted online, and at some point we'll have portions of this posted as well, so people who couldn't attend the meetings can benefit from our discussion today. And I thank you very much for taking the time to visit with me. Have a great day.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.